This story was sent to me by a programmer living in Seattle. He says that since that night, he hasn't dared to open his computer's camera again. Here is what happened. I'm a freelance programmer. I live in a cramped apartment on the outskirts of Seattle. The apartment is on the 4th floor. The building is old. The walls are thick, but they still leak sound. My room is my office. It's also where I sleep. I spend 14 hours a day in front of 3 giant monitors. The lighting inside my room is always dim. The curtains are completely drawn. I don't like sunlight because it gives me headaches, and it makes seeing the code difficult. The apartment is dead silent. I don't even hear the street noise. To keep from going insane from the silence, I used to open a live stream on a side monitor. Not to watch anything specific. Just for entertainment and to feel the presence of other humans. That night, it was 2 a.m. The air was unusually cold. Even though the heat was on, I started feeling a sort of heaviness in the back of my head. Like someone was watching me. I shook my head and ignored it. I opened YouTube. A channel appeared in my recommendations. A very strange channel. It had no name. It was just a series of numbers, 00110110. The thumbnail for the stream was completely black. I clicked on it out of curiosity. The stream began. It was a fixed security camera. The image quality was poor. It looked like cameras from the 80s. Black and white with a lot of visual noise. The camera was filming a corner of a dark room. At first, I didn't see anything. I don't know what made me keep watching. It was like something was pulling me toward the channel. My eyes began to adjust to the darkness on the screen. There was a desk. And on it, 3 monitors. Just like my desk. I started looking at the small details. There was a coffee mug with a chipped rim. I looked at my mug on my real desk. It was chipped in the exact same place. My heart started racing. I told myself it was just a coincidence. Maybe it's another programmer with the same furniture. But there was a small sticker on the corner of the monitor in the stream. A sticker for an old software company that went bankrupt 10 years ago. I own that sticker. I got it from my father. There isn't a second copy of it in the world. I felt a coldness freeze my limbs. I raised my left hand very slowly. I felt like I was moving inside a dream or a nightmare. On the screen, I saw a shadow move. The shadow raised its left hand at the exact same moment. There was no delay in the stream. It was live. It was happening now. The camera was behind me, right above the wardrobe. In that dead corner where the light never reaches. I didn't dare to turn around. I knew if I did, I would see the lens. Or I would see who was holding it. I started hearing a buzzing sound coming from my headphones. It was a very low sound. Like the sound of metal rubbing against concrete. Then the sound began to turn into a whisper. Unintelligible words mixing with the sound of my computer fan. I felt cold breath touch the strands of hair on the back of my neck. The stream was showing something extra now. Behind the chair I was sitting on in the screen, the bathroom door began to open very slowly. Millimeter by millimeter. In my real apartment, the bathroom is behind me to the left. I heard the creak of the door in reality. It was a faint sound. But it was enough to tear the silence apart. I could see on the screen a hand coming out of the door opening. A long hand, pale as paper. The fingernails were black and rotted. The hand was gripping the edge of the wooden frame. And it began to pull the rest of the body out. It was an entity with no clear features. Just a mass of dense shadow wearing the remains of human clothes. The entity was looking toward me, despite having no eyes. At that moment, the stream changed. Red text appeared on the screen that read, "You program this path, do not try to break the code." The 3 monitors in my room began to flash violently and the colors bled together. The code I was writing began to change on its own. It was turning into repeated words, He is behind you. He is behind you. He is behind you. I felt the air pressure change in the room, as if there was a giant mass displacing the oxygen around me. I could see in the stream that the entity was now standing directly behind the chair I was sitting in. Its trembling hand rose to touch the headrest. I felt the chair shake in reality. A slight vibration, but it was real. I was trapped between a screen showing my death and a reality executing it with precision. Sweat was covering my face. I wanted to scream, but my throat was completely dry. I felt the coldness of metal touch my skin at my neck. It wasn't a knife. It was something colder. It was the texture of dead fingers. In the stream, the entity was smiling now. A black void opened in the middle of its face, and it began to whisper my name. Not loudly, but with a frequency that reached directly into my brain. The trial period is over, time for execution. At that moment, all the monitors went out. Total darkness prevailed. The silence was more terrifying than the sound. Because I knew for certain, that the hand I saw on the stream was no longer inside the screen. It was now wrapping around my neck in reality. And there was no code in the world that could save me from this moment. The darkness wasn't just an absence of light. It was thick and heavy. I felt the cold hand completely circling my neck now. It wasn't pressing to strangle me. It was just holding me, as if it were making sure I wouldn't move. My breath froze in my chest. I felt the roughness of the skin on those fingers. It was like the texture of dry earth. I started hearing the sound of breathing behind my ear. It wasn't human breathing. It was a wet sound, like the sound of air bubbles coming out of black mud. I began to shake violently. The chair I was sitting on started to groan under the weight of extra pressure, as if the entity had started to climb up behind me. I tried to move my hand toward the desk. I was looking for anything. Scissors, a pen, or even the broken coffee mug. But my hand was paralyzed by terror. Suddenly, the middle screen came back to life automatically. It wasn't showing code anymore. Instead, an enlarged image of my face appeared. I looked as pale as a corpse. And in the reflection on the screen, I saw what was behind me. It had no face. It was just a mass of distorted flesh covered in bandages. The bandages were leaking a sticky black liquid. The entity placed its head directly over my shoulder. That black void that represented its mouth was approaching my face. The whispering started to return. This time it wasn't in my mind. It was a physical sound vibrating my eardrum. It said coldly, "Do not try to reboot." Then, with a swift motion, it dug its nails into my shoulder. I felt a sharp, burning pain. It was the pain that woke up my survival instinct. I pushed the chair back with all my strength. I slammed into the entity. I heard the sound of a heavy body hitting the floor. I didn't wait. I ran toward the door. I was tripping over scattered computer cables. I reached the door and started struggling with the handle. It was stuck, as if someone were holding it from the other side with immense strength. I looked behind me. I saw the entity rising from the floor with terrifying slowness. It didn't rise like a human. Its limbs gathered in an unnatural way, as if it were rebuilding itself. It started crawling toward me on all fours. Its movements were fast and sudden, like the movements of a spider. I screamed with everything I had. I started slamming my shoulder against the door. Suddenly, the door flew open. I threw myself into the dark hallway of the building. I didn't stop to close the door behind me. I ran toward the stairs. I didn't use the elevator. I was afraid of being trapped between floors with that thing. I could hear fast footsteps behind me. The sound of nails scraping against the tiles was getting closer. I ran down the 4 floors in seconds. I reached the main lobby. It was completely empty. Even the security guard wasn't at his desk. I ran out into the street. The rain was pouring down in Seattle. I ran in the middle of the road under the floodlights. I thought the light would protect me. But I was wrong. I looked at the storefronts I passed. In every window, I saw my reflection. And behind my reflection, that shadow was always following me. It was keeping a constant distance. 10 meters. Not getting closer, not getting further away. I stopped running, gasping for air. My lungs were burning. I looked directly behind me in the real street. There was no one there. The street was completely empty. But when I looked at my phone screen, which lit up with a new notification, I saw something that made me lose my balance. It was a notification from my home camera app, motion detected in the living room. I opened the video, trembling. The video showed me. I was standing in the middle of my room, looking at the camera and smiling. I was wearing the same clothes. But my eyes were completely black. The version in the video raised its hand and pointed towards somewhere behind the camera. Then it wrote on a piece of paper and held it in front of the lens. The message was directed at me, the one standing in the street right now. The paper said, "You forgot your keys inside, and the door is still open." At that moment, I felt the presence of someone standing directly behind me in the dark street. I turned around and saw a waiter coming out of a nearby cafe to put up a closed sign. I breathed a sigh of relief for a second. But when the waiter passed by me, he didn't look at me. He looked through me, as if I weren't there. He pulled out his phone and called someone. I heard his voice clearly. He said, "Yes, Unit 402 is vacant now, you can send the cleaning crew. 402 is my apartment number." I felt the terror double. Am I dead? Or did I escape from my reality into another reality where I don't belong? I looked back at my phone screen. The version in my home was laughing silently now. It started tearing the bandages off its face. And under the bandages, there was no human face. There was code leaking out like blood. Suddenly, all the street lights went out at once. I found myself in total darkness again, amid the silence of rainy Seattle. And I heard the sound of footsteps approaching me from every side. Steady footsteps. Heavy. And very quiet. The darkness in the street wasn't natural. It was like ink swallowing everything. I felt like I was no longer in the Seattle I knew. The sounds vanished completely. Even the sound of the rain suddenly stopped. I was standing alone in the middle of the road. My phone was the only source of light. Its screen was flickering weakly. Suddenly, hundreds of notifications started hitting me. All of them from the same unknown YouTube channel. New live stream started. New live stream started. I opened the link with my trembling hand. The camera now wasn't in my apartment. It was a drone camera filming me from above. I saw myself as a tiny dot lost in a dark street. Then the camera began to descend slowly. It was approaching my head. I saw myself on the screen looking at the phone. I started running aimlessly. I wanted to get out of the camera frame. But wherever I went, the camera followed me with programmed precision. I tripped and fell to the ground. My phone flew away and its screen went dead. Now, the real silence prevailed. I heard footsteps behind me. It was the sound of sneakers hitting the wet asphalt. I turned around slowly. I saw someone standing under a single streetlight that had suddenly turned on. He was wearing the exact same clothes as me. A black hoodie and faded blue jeans. He had his back to me. I called out to him with a raspy voice, "Who are you?" He didn't answer. He started moving slowly toward the corner of a dark alley. I followed him unconsciously. I was mesmerized by fear. When I entered the alley, I found it empty. But at the end of it, there was a laptop sitting on the ground. It was open. Its screen was showing lines of code moving at insane speeds. I approached it. The code was written in a language I didn't know. But I could read some words. They were the details of my life. My date of birth. my mother's name, my first dog, even what I ate for dinner tonight. And at the bottom of the screen, there was a single line flashing in green: process, subject replacement. Status, 99%. A sharp headache tore through my brain. My memories began to fade. I could no longer remember my father's face. I couldn't remember the name of the street I lived on. I looked at my hand. My fingertips were becoming transparent. They were turning into small squares of black pixels. I screamed, but no sound came out. I looked at my reflection in the computer screen. I didn't see my face. I saw the same bandaged entity that was in my apartment. It was looking at me with sadness, as if it pitied me. Suddenly, I heard the ping of a message arriving on my phone that I had left in the street. I crawled toward the alley exit to reach it. I grabbed the phone. The message was from my own number. The content was an audio recording. I pressed play. I heard my voice, perfectly clear, saying, "Thank you for taking such good care of this body. I'll take it from here." I looked ahead. I saw my real self standing on the opposite sidewalk. The other me was smiling at me with a wide, unnatural grin. He waved his hand at me, then turned and got into a taxi that was waiting for him. The car drove off and disappeared into the fog. I stayed in the alley, my body slowly fading away to become just lost digital data. I tried to call anyone, but my phone now only showed one list of names: previous users. The list was very long, and every name was crossed out, except for mine. Suddenly, I felt someone touch my shoulder from behind. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I knew the new programmer had arrived, and that I had now become just a glitch in his system. The end wasn't death. It was worse. It was just a deletion. And even now, if you are reading this code, or hearing this story, beware of that dead corner behind your chair. Don't look at the live stream for too long, because you might find yourself one day, just a backup being slowly replaced, while the other you is living your life right now in total peace.